There are a great many inspirational things in spending time with Scott Young. First of all, as we discussed a little bit after the presentation, he didn't grow up in a big city surrounded by lots of resources, but he did have the influence of parents that believed that learning was important. And I think almost all of us heard that from our parents. But what he's done is he has taken the notion of learning and extended it into showing that learning things can be rewarding in itself, can make life itself that much more exciting. Whether it was his MIT challenge that really moved him into rock star status in the self-directed learner, autodidact, whether it was the language, the year without English, as they called it, but taking on these learning challenges in different ways has enabled him to be influential, exciting, inspirational, and have a lot of fun in his life, which is great. A couple of things that really hit me well. One was he emphasized the difference between self-directed versus self-taught. Self-taught, that can happen through trial and error. We can experience something. Self-directed means taking the resources that are there and applying them in ways that suit our nature and suit our style most uniquely. Simple example of increasing the speed of playback in an audio. Well, we're the director of that. We can self-direct. Applying the Feynman method, writing down what we don't understand, being very specific, and then immediately saying, well, if I had to teach this to somebody, what would I teach? And by backing down into the steps, then we find out which parts specifically we don't know. And when there's something specific we don't know, then we can specifically use that and actively work on that till we get it right. And above all, he said, learn it in the way your environment allows. That might mean seeking help from people, looking at books, finding things online, checking videos. There's lots of different ways to do it. But what's really fun about that is realizing that even the most difficult things can be made more easy when we break them down into steps. He really talked about why this came about. His success in being self-directed and a world-class learner, it starts with the will, having a desire to really learn something, taking the attitude toward it, and then having the right method. I wrote down a quotation. There are differences in ability, but that's not the key. Find the way that works for you. And further quote that I got from Scott that I've written down and will strive to remember, learning is the process of being first bad at things. And to not be defeated or discouraged by that everything that we learn, we're not going to be good at it first. Somebody once said, anything worth doing is worth doing well. But Mort Utley, who was a great influence in my life, said anything worth doing is worth doing poorly at first, because we're almost always poor at things before we become great at them. And I think that's something that Scott was really echoing in a good way. He talked a lot about the confidence spiral there toward the end, the confidence spiral that when we succeed at something, it gives us the sense of belief that we can succeed at something else, that this confidence spiral can move upward, and really nobody knows what the limits to that might be. He has several role models that he cited in his presentation, but above all, he strikes me as a great role model for somebody that can use the confidence cycle. Hey, if I could learn the MIT's computer science curriculum in a year, I could probably learn how to do X or Y or Z or some other thing next. The confidence spiral can also work against us. When we don't succeed at something, we say to ourselves, well, I'm not good at that. I'm just not cut out for doing that. And we psych ourselves out. So a lot of that is where the self-directed point that Scott made earlier really clicks in. Can we direct our thoughts so that instead of saying this defeat means I shouldn't do this anymore, can we self-direct and say, this just shows me there's something I don't know, something I don't understand. And so we back up into the Feynman method. We talk about what we do understand until we get to the point where we don't, and that's the thing we zero in and work on it. He said, take something small and succeed at it. Could be a 30-day challenge, but that gives us that inner conviction and that confidence that we can take on other challenges and make those work well. So this is a fascinating individual who has turned learning into something that he can then teach others how to do. And as long as we have the curiosity to keep learning, there's not a limit to how exciting life can be. So I walk away inspired and think that you probably will too. So why don't we think of something that we are really striving to get better at, and let's take those first steps and move toward it. Let's get our own confidence spiral moving up in a good direction. Things take time. Scott emphasized that it's not easy, that it's not going to be automatic, but if we spend time on it, we can move forward and accomplish just about anything, even learning the computer science curriculum at MIT in a year. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having you next time on the Action Catalyst.